It was one of the most intimidating aircraft ever built. A huge supersonic bomber that stayed wrapped in mystery for decades and was once even mistaken for the world's first nuclear-powered plane. In the 1,950 seconds, the only real way to deliver nuclear weapons was to load them onto bombers and fly them straight to their targets. If nuclear war broke out, the Soviet Union would have to send bombers toward the United States, just as the United States would send its own toward Soviet territory. By the mid-1950 seconds, the core of the U.S. bomber force was the new B-52, a jet bomber that combined high speed, heavy payload, and long range. The Soviet long-range bomber program, however, was much less successful. Their first intercontinental jet bomber was supposed to reach the United States, but in development, it failed to achieve the required range. Because of this, the Soviets had to rely on a propeller-driven design. It solved the range problem, but its speed and payload still fell short of its jet-powered rival. The Soviet Union was already at a disadvantage, and things were about to get worse. In 1955, intelligence reports showed that the United States was developing a new long-range bomber that could carry a large payload, fly great distances, and then enter Soviet airspace at supersonic speed, making interception extremely difficult. To keep the strategic balance, the Soviets now had to build an aircraft that could match this threat. That same year, the Myasishchev Design Bureau was urgently tasked with creating a new long-range supersonic bomber with equally powerful performance. The new aircraft would be similar in size and weight to the existing M4, but its fuselage would be redesigned to be longer and more streamlined. It would have enormous delta wings, a swept tail, and almost every part of the aircraft had to be redesigned from scratch. The engineers chose a configuration with 4 engines in an unconventional layout. The earlier M4 bomber had a crew of 8, but to save weight, the new aircraft used only 2 men, a pilot and a co-pilot. With a planned range of 12,000 kilometers and a top speed of Mach 2, this bomber was intended to be a major leap beyond the M4. The new aircraft was designated M-50. Soviet leaders hoped the first prototype could be ready within 3 years. The M-50 was meant to represent the peak of Soviet aviation design, a flying showcase of their aerospace industry. It carried the largest delta wings built at that time, spanning 35 meters. Engineers spent years refining them for supersonic performance. To cross the ocean and reach the United States, the M-50 had to carry huge amounts of fuel for its 4 powerful but inefficient engines. 8 large fuel tanks filled most of the fuselage. The fuel had another key function. As the aircraft accelerated through the sound barrier, its center of gravity shifted sharply. An automatic system was designed to transfer fuel between tanks to keep the aircraft balanced and stable. The pressurized cockpit housed 2 downward-firing ejection seats for the pilot and co-pilot, both in high-altitude flight suits. To reduce their workload, many of the M-50's systems were automated, and it used an early fly-by-wire control system instead of the usual mechanical linkages of the era. For defense, the design included a tail-mounted cannon remotely controlled by the co-pilot. For offense, the M-50 could carry up to 22 tons of nuclear weapons or cruise missiles. The Soviet Union poured immense resources into the project, and by 1958, it seemed they had created the world's first long-range supersonic bomber. Then history took an unexpected turn. In 1958, an article in Aviation Week caused a sensation by claiming that the Soviet Union was test flying the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft. The article claimed to be based on several reliable sources and painted a vivid picture of a supersonic bomber with almost unbelievable performance. It even asserted that the aircraft could circle the globe multiple times without refueling. The story was quickly reprinted by major newspapers, triggering a wave of fear that the United States had already fallen behind. Most Western intelligence analysts doubted these claims, but they still watched the bomber's development closely. In 1961, the M-50 finally appeared at a Soviet air show, giving the public its first real look. Escorted by 2 Mi-21 seconds, the massive aircraft looked imposing and menacing in the sky. Yet, experienced observers soon noticed problems. The huge engine seemed to lack key features required for sustained supersonic flight, and several aspects of the airframe went against basic aerodynamic principles. The straight wing trailing edge, engine placement, and lack of an area-ruled waist all indicated that, near the speed of sound, the bomber would suffer from severe transonic drag. Even at subsonic speeds, the combination of relatively small wings and a bulky fuselage would likely hurt performance and severely limit range. Skeptical of its combat effectiveness, U.S. intelligence gave the aircraft the code name Barbarian. Whatever its true capabilities, that air show was the last time the West saw it fly. Behind the Iron Curtain, the program was running into serious trouble, pushed forward at a frantic pace by political pressure. The M-50 actually flew before the U.S. had a comparable bomber, but the project was beset by issues from the start. The M-50 design depended on new high-powered engines, yet their development lagged badly. As an emergency measure, the prototype received turbojets similar to those on the older M4, with afterburners fitted to the inner pair to make up for the lack of thrust. Flight tests revealed further difficulties. For a crew of only 2, handling the aircraft was exhausting. One account said that flying it demanded heroic effort from the pilots. The most serious flaw was that the aircraft simply could not break the sound barrier. Even in full-power dives, the M-50 stubbornly remained below Mach 1. It became clear that the bomber suffered from fundamental design mistakes. Because the prototype's real performance fell far short of its ambitious specifications, the program was canceled after only 11 test flights. Engineers then turned to a successor, the M-52, which was to receive stronger engines and major aerodynamic improvements. But the strategic landscape had shifted. With the rise of intercontinental ballistic missiles, the idea of a costly, long-range supersonic bomber lost much of its appeal. Missiles could deliver nuclear warheads faster and more efficiently than any aircraft. In 1961, before the second prototype ever flew, the entire project was shut down. The M-50 was a spectacular-looking airplane, but in practice, it was a clear failure. Its designers had stepped into a technological frontier that exceeded the era's capabilities. The expensive collapse of the program underscored one hard truth. At that time, humanity's understanding of supersonic flight was still far from complete.